Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, a podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your co-host, Ashley Kusi. We want to thank you all for your ratings and reviews. They've really helped this podcast to get high in the rankings for iTunes, and we've had a lot of new couples be able to find this show. Bear with me because I've had a cold, and so I know you can hear that in my voice. We want to give a big thank you to DSMCMM, Fire and Adjust, and Spider 2009 for the ratings and reviews that they've left. If you want to send feedback for the show, we'd really love to hear it, what we can do better, how we can better serve you, what specific topics you'd like asked about, things like that. You can send it to firstyearmarriage@gmail.com. In this week's interview, please bear with us as our guest is actually from Italy, so English is his second language. For all the show notes, visit firstyearmarriage.com/14.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I am your host, Marcus Kusi, and in today's episode, I'll be sharing the first year marriage story of Antonio, Gerenini, and Francesca Di Meglio. They have been married for more than 6 years and have a loving 3-year-old son. Antonio is a receptionist at a well-respected hotel in Italy, and Francesca is the newlyweds expert for About.com. Antonio and Francesca, thank you guys for coming on the show today. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy day to share your story with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met each other?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us on the show, by the way. We're really appreciative. We actually met when I was visiting my family on the small island of Ischia off the coast of Naples in Italy. My parents are from that island, and my husband was best friends with my cousin, and we all went out to dinner one night. That night, my husband actually said, "When are we going to get engaged?" And he was laughing. I told him he was crazy because I was going back to America. And he came to my cousin's door to ask me out on a date, and I had had a major injury. I ended up having 3 surgeries and 2 years of physical therapy after that injury on my knee. And we never got to have that date. So because of that, he came to my cousin's house while I was on crutches and had our first date with my grandparents. My grandparents, my cousins, actually half of my family.
I meet everything.
Yes, he met everyone right away. From there, he decided to come visit me in America, and the rest
I
is
married the
history.
whole package. Yeah.
Yes, he married the whole package.
So Antonio, how did you know that Francesca was the one that you wanted to settle down with?
Come hai saputo che volevi sposarmi?
Ci ho messo 4 anni.
He did take 4
I think
years.
for 4 years. I think.
Yes, he thought about it for 4 years. We didn't actually get engaged until we were dating already 4 years. The relationship was a little bit hard. It still is. We kind of at times have a long distance marriage too, and we had a long distance relationship. We did a lot of dating on Skype.
Yes.
We got to know each other on Skype a lot. And then he came with my cousin in 2004, right after we had met, and spent Thanksgiving with us. And then we started going back and forth. I would go in the spring to Italy, and he would come here in the winter when he was off work.
Okay, lavoro mio,
His work is seasonal, so he could come here more. We actually have now spent since our son was born, we've spent equal amounts of time in Italy and the United States, which has been a little crazy.
Wow. So Francesca, how did you guys know that you guys wanted to actually settle down? Like, was there any signs that you saw in each other?
Yes, it was very hard at the beginning because we were so far apart. I had some doubts, and I know Antonio did too, and I think that's why we waited so long. What I feel really brought us together, there are three things. The first thing is we have the same values. Our families come from the same place. We had the same religion already, and we both were believers. We're Catholic. My family speaks Italian, so we shared that language as well, and just a lot of the same traditions. So right from there, I felt something. My father felt like it was a little bit like it was destiny because Antonio lives in the house that used to be my father's middle school when he grew up in Italy.
Wow.
And I feel like I also felt like I was getting a recommendation from my cousin since he was my cousin's best friend. In those ways, it felt right.
So your cousin was the one who was pulling the strings in the background for you guys.
Yeah, a little bit at the beginning of the relationship. Anyway, later on it was different, but at the beginning, I definitely think that helped because it's hard nowadays to know people, to find out if someone is a good-hearted person, if they have the same values as you. It's very complicated, and to have one person who you already trust be telling you that this is my best friend, I trust him, it helped. I definitely think that helped.
Wow. Thank you for shedding a lot of insights into how you guys met and what you guys did together. Even though you were apart, like miles apart, I would say continents apart, you were still able to work things together to be able to decide to spend the rest of your life together as a married couple.
Yes.
After you guys got married, I know with the first year, there are a lot of things that could go wrong. There are a lot of things that could go right. There are a lot of issues that happened during that first year. How would you guys describe your first year of marriage in one or two words?
One or two words?
Yeah.
Come descrivere il primo anno del matrimonio in una o due parole? I know how I would describe it. I would say a fun honeymoon.
A fun honeymoon.
Yes.
What about you, Antonio?
Sono gli odori diversi, la vita è diversa, però è tutto più bello, diciamo. It's a new life. New life.
A new life, he said.
Can you guys shed light onto the reasons why you chose those different words?
Yes, in discussing tonight's appointment with you, we were talking about the fact that for us, the first year of marriage actually wasn't as hard as the other years of marriage. Our first year went pretty well. We did not have a child yet, so we were pretty free still. I spent 6 months in Italy after we got married, and we had this wonderful summer on the island of Ischia. We went to the beach every week.
Wow.
We coordinated it so we had our days off. Yes, we live on an island, so we could walk to the beach. We went to the beach every week. We had nice dinners, leisurely Italian dinners with our friends. It was very comfortable and fun. It was a lot of fun. I think things got more difficult as the years wore on, besides the fact that we have family in both countries, so it requires a lot of traveling, which requires a lot of money and jet lag. And now that we have a child, we had a little difficulty having our son. I had a miscarriage, and Antonio was in Italy when that happened, so those things were difficult. And then, as the years go on, there are more pressing problems as you're parenting. You're worrying about your child. You want the best for them. So those kinds of things, I think, make it a little more complicated and a little less fun. You have to work a lot harder. You have to do fewer of those dinners and days at the beach and what have you. And the first year wasn't like that at all.
From what you're saying, it means your first year was a really good year for you guys. You didn't really have to struggle during that year. Did you guys have to go through any adjustments during that first year at all?
Yes, we both spent a little more time in our respective countries than we had done before. I had not spent 6 months in Italy, and Antonio could only spend about 3 months here. He spent 1 month here and then came back again because he didn't have his green card yet. So that right there was an adjustment. We didn't spend the holidays together because of that. We also had to get used to being with each other's families more, and being in another person's country with a different language and different culture and different ideas about all sorts of things. I had to get used to the 3-hour siesta as a way of life as opposed to just on my vacation and all those kinds of things. So yeah, those would be our big adjustments for the first year.
Thank you for sharing these adjustments with us. I'm really learning a lot from you guys. And during that first year, whilst you guys were going through that adjustments period, did you have to worry about how you guys were going to communicate with each other since you both lived in different countries at one point in time?
Yes, I was actually thinking about this today. When we disagree now, things are much easier. Back in the day when we would disagree, and I think this part of the problem was having two languages, we would fight, and it would be a big deal. It could last for a day or more. And I would be wondering if this was the end, and now it's no big deal at all. And we've learned to communicate a lot better. I learned he really doesn't like it if I raise my voice at all. And I sometimes did that. He also would rather be alone for a little while, whereas I want to resolve everything that minute.
You're breakable.
He wants a little bit of a pause when we're arguing or disagreeing about something, and I've learned about that. And he's also learned that I don't like it if he gives me the cold shoulder or we don't talk things out sooner rather than later. So we both have compromised a lot in that way.
With your compromise, did you guys have to come up with a plan to be able to compromise on two different ideas or two different ways of doing things?
I mean, we've had to do that over the course of our marriage, for different things, even simple things like, how to set the table and things like that. But I would say for the overall experience of how we communicated, we never set out with a plan. I think it just happened naturally. We talk every day in Italian and now in English for the sake of our son, because he was confused by the two languages. So we've been speaking English. We both have gotten better with the other person's language. I had always spoken Italian, but English is still my first language. That's what I'm comfortable speaking in. We've both gotten better with the languages, so that kind of naturally helped things along. And we just got to know each other's pinpoints, the things that would push each other's buttons. And we've started to, respect that and not step on each other's toes.
I'm learning a lot from you guys. I know with any long distance relationship, there are a lot of difficulties, and sometimes it's just a distance. The distance alone can cause the couples to separate or to decide to part ways. And I'm glad, even though you guys were far away from each other, you were still able to communicate, to be able to resolve your differences whilst you're going through all of these adjustments. So, Francesca, you made mention about having a miscarriage during the first few years of your marriage. Do you want to share a lot of insight into it for us? I know a lot of people are not okay sharing a lot of details into it, but if you're fine with it, can you share a little bit of insights for us?
Sure. I have no problem talking about it. I really think that it would have helped me if more people had talked about it. So I'm happy to discuss it.
Thank you.
No problem. It actually happened. We were married 3 years at the time. We tried to start having kids fairly quickly after we got married. I would say within the first 6 months, we talked about it. And within the second 6 months, we were trying to have kids and we were unsuccessful. And I had to go just for fertility tests. We didn't decide about fertility treatments or anything. But one of these fertility tests had actually made it possible. It revealed a cyst I had. And whatever happened in the testing actually made it possible for me to get pregnant, and I did. But I lost the baby ultimately, and I was sick, fairly sick for the entire 8 weeks that I was pregnant. And it was clear that we would maybe lose this baby from early on. We were told that it was a 50-50 chance, and then we did ultimately lose the baby. And it was particularly difficult because Antonio was not with me at the time. He was in Italy, and I was planning to be with him in Italy, but then I got sick and lost the baby and ended up staying here a little longer than anticipated. And really, it was actually a moment fortify and strengthen our marriage because he really had to support me, and it was difficult to do from far away. I was very, very depressed. I really saw things as being very dark. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to have children, and that had always been a dream of mine. And I was just feeling very down about things, and he had to put up with a lot that year to perk my spirits and keep me afloat. And he came through. He came through even from far away. And then we did reunite. About 2 months after I lost the baby, I did go to Italy, and we spent the rest of that summer and fall together. And he came, of course, in the winter. And by January of the next year, we were pregnant unexpectedly, very unexpectedly. We had actually been told not to even try, and we had a very happy accident. And we were supposed to be going on a cruise.
Sorry, accident.
He says it's not really an accident because we wanted it to happen. He's right. That's true. We were supposed to be going on a cruise, and we asked the doctor. I was really terrified to go. We were going to have to fly to Florida and go on the cruise, and I was worried about the pregnancy. And my doctor reassured us and said, look, if you're going to lose the baby, you will lose the baby, and it will have nothing to do with whether you went on a plane or not. So just go and have fun and relax. And we did, and I have to say, I thank God every day and knock on wood right now. I had a wonderful pregnancy, really healthy, and yes, everything went great. And I kept telling my husband that the doctor said, be back in America by September 23rd if you want to be sure that you're here when the baby is born. And my husband didn't want to take off work so early because he wanted to stay. And the baby was due October 7th, but the baby came on September 26th. My husband was on his way back here in Germany when our son was born.
Wow.
So he missed the actual birth. He got here by 8 o'clock that night.
But
I all my life.
Yes, he says he's still paying for it. He'll pay for it his whole life.
Yeah, I know what it feels like to have that experience. I know it's a very unique experience, and especially it being your first son or your first child is something that when both spouses are present, it's more enjoyable and more exciting and more fulfilling. But even though he wasn't able there, I know he's doing everything he can to help you to be able to raise your son together as a married couple and be able to raise a very responsible child who's going to impact the world in the future.
Thank you. And in fact, we have been together. Now that our son has been born, we haven't spent much time apart. Antonio was gone for 1 month in the spring before my son and I went to Italy, and he was gone for another month just now. He just got back, actually, from Italy. Otherwise, we've been together. I have a jet
lag in my...
Yes, he still has jet lag.
Okay. So thank you for shedding light into your miscarriage. I know our listeners who are listening to us right now who are going through a miscarriage right now, or just had a miscarriage, or are scared about having a miscarriage, we're able to learn from your insights and your experience, and we're able to apply the wisdom that you've shared with us from your experience in their own lives also.
I hope so. It's a very tough thing, and a lot of people will tell you, oh, a miscarriage just is your body getting ready for another pregnancy. And I think in many cases that's true. So people should have hope too that this isn't the end. It doesn't mean you won't have your baby.
Thank you very much for sharing that insight. Antonio, I want to ask you this question. Whilst you guys were living in two different countries, how did you guys manage your finances together as a couple, or did you have separate checking accounts or separate bank accounts?
La banca, come abbiamo fatto con I soldi quando non eravamo insieme? Abbiamo fatto separati.
Ma qui in Italia, in America, come?
In tutti e due i posti, come hai
perché
fatto?
Qui abbiamo fatto una cosa insieme.
We did make a joint banking account in the United States. In Italy, we did not have it because our residency is basically here. He has his green card, and I work from here. So we have a joint bank account still in the United States. We do have some things separate, just because it was easier that way. I own a home with my sister, for instance, so that's separate from Antonio. We also just talk about money. we're very open about money. That hasn't actually ever been a real issue with us. Non abbiamo mai litigato dei soldi.
No, si litiga di tutto, di dividere, ma non di soldi.
Yeah, we fight about everything, but we actually haven't fought about money, which is rare. I write about this all the time, and money is the number one cause of arguments in couples, especially newlyweds. But it hasn't been much of an issue for us.
Noi andiamo d'accordo perché io spendo i soldi e tu no.
He says, Antonio says we get along well because he spends money and I don't, which is true. I'm a big saver and he's a big spender, and
It's perfect. What do you think?
It is a little bit like that. I rein him in, and and every once in a while he'll convince me to splurge on something. Rarely, but it happens. So yes, that is basically how it's done. And I do handle most of the bill paying and all of that stuff, all the budgeting. I have my Excel spreadsheets with our spending and all this stuff. And when we were fixing up our house in America, I was keeping track of all of the bills and everything else. So yeah, I think it is a little
Italian.
Like that. That's also a cultural difference. I am the American, thinking about saving and whatnot, and he's the Italian that, take it day by day. Life is too short. So.
No, I save money, but
yes.
I love life. Yes,
he likes to live.
I like to go outside in a restaurant. I with my wife. I like go around. I like holiday. Yeah. You understand?
I can see that you like having fun.
Yes. And I'm much more. Not that I don't like having fun, because I do. And
Noi
I
siamo
think
molto diversi.
Yes, we're very different though. I'm very serious and responsible, and looking to the future and thinking about our son's college education.
I like to clown. Yeah.
You're not like a clown, but he's definitely more relaxed than I am about that stuff.
Oh, okay. Thank you for telling us a little bit about your finances and how you guys handle it together. So, during your first year, whilst you guys were married, was there any exciting or funny moments that you guys had during that first year?
Yeah, momenti di divertimento quando appena sposavamo. I think it was just exciting. When we were in Italy, I would say it was the most exciting part because it was really like almost a vacation, even though we were both working.
Tutti e due ci divertiamo quando ci sono i tuoi cugini.
We also have a lot of fun with our families. That's true. Antonio said with my family.
When we drink a lot.
When they have dinners together, and it would be fun. We had a lot of fun with our relatives and friends in that first year. We had a good time. He says we had a lot of fun with our friends. He enjoyed spending time eating big meals and drinking and talking and just enjoying each other's company and our family's company. We became closer to each other's families that first year too.
That's really good to know. From what you guys are saying, I could see that you spend most of the time during that first year with your family members and mostly with your friends, just hanging out.
In Italy, we live in a house where it has a number of apartments, and Antonio's sisters and their families live in the apartments, and his mom. And in America, we live next door to my parents. So we are with our relatives often.
Oh, okay. Wow.
A lot, which is very typical.
We are a big family.
Yes.
You understand.
It's very typical of Italian people in general.
I know with a lot of family, I want to say a lot of family, but with some families, if they live so close together, it's going to be very, very chaotic almost every single day. So I'm glad you guys are able to have fun together as a family and be able to live close together.
It is a little chaotic. We have our moments, but overall we've done fine with it.
Oh, that's good then. So during your first year and during the time that you guys have been married, is there any book or resource that you think has really made a difference in your marriage? I know living apart, long distance, trying to navigate everything that you guys have been through, especially in that first year, wouldn't be possible without having any resource or someone to seek advice or seek some knowledge from.
Da chi prendi consiglio per il matrimonio? Libri, psicologi, qualcosa del genere.
My head.
Antonio says he gains most of his knowledge from his own head. I will say...
No, io vedo le mie sorelle e quello che fanno di sbagliato loro non lo faccio.
He said he watches his sisters and what their mistakes he doesn't make.
Oh, okay.
Which in some ways I think that's true. I thought about this a lot when I heard your other podcast and when I looked at the questions for today. And I have to say that, I write about newlyweds and I've been writing about relationships for over 10 years now at various publications. So I've talked to many psychologists, listened to a lot of podcasts. I've read numerous books about relationships and watched some of these reality shows, Couples Therapy, Juliana Rancic's relationship with her husband. All of this stuff is all very helpful and wonderful. But I have to say, when it comes down to it, the things that matter to me most or that end up impacting my marriage the most are family members, because I do watch them. My parents have been married 37 years now. My grandparents were married till the day they died. My other grandparents who are still alive have been married over 60 years. So I really think I've gained all of that kind of advice and the kinds of things that I incorporate into my own relationship from our families. I will also say, I say this all the time, but I think that the two things that really sustain me and Antonio are food and sex. I say it all the time.
Before food.
We're both foodies. We really like to eat. We really like to cook. Very typical, again, of Italian families. And we always find time for sex.
Allora, si litiga in salotto, si fa pace in cucina e si fa sesso nel letto.
Antonio says you fight in the living room, you make peace in the kitchen, and you have sex in the bed. I think those are that actually very simple advice.
Sometimes
and words.
The couch, but sometimes.
You could replace the bed with the couch. I guess so. I think those are simple words and great advice. Just let food and sex rule the day, and you should be fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you guys for sharing this resource to our listeners. I know they are going to learn a lot from it and be able to apply it in their marriage also. Before we end our today's episode, is there one lesson or advice that you guys wish you had known before you got married or during your first year of marriage?
I do wish that I knew about a lot of the challenges that were going to come our way, and there's no way to know that. We can't read the future. I would have done things differently if I knew we were going to have so many problems getting pregnant and having the miscarriage and all of that. I might have acted differently too, to try to understand his likes and dislikes about how we argued earlier. I think that would have helped us communicate better even sooner. So those kinds of things. But you know what? The sad truth is you can't anticipate everything. As someone who's a type A personality, as Antonio pointed out, I'm very serious. I'm always forward thinking. There is no magic 8 ball. You cannot anticipate everything that's going to happen to the two of you. And so you have to be strong, and you also have to keep your eyes open and support each other, because God is going to send what God is going to send. And even if you don't believe in God, there are just going to be challenges in your life that the two of you are going to have to face together. And you have to be strong doing that.
Antonio, is there anything that you wanted to add to it?
Hai consiglio per gli altri del matrimonio qualcosa che speravi di sapere che non sapevi prima di sposare? Well, having sex is important. That's one thing that Antonio believes. I know.
Il senso della famiglia, del family.
Oh, you need a sense of family.
Le nostre due famiglie ce l'hanno sempre avuto, e questo ci ha aiutato anche a noi ad avere la nostra famiglia.
Both our families are very tight knit and believe in the family lifestyle, the family way to be with your kids, to take care of them, to be responsible to your husband or wife, and this has helped us along the way, and I would agree with
E
that.
poi comunque la venuta di nostro figlio è la benedizione del matrimonio, penso quello che
Yes, you know, we are Catholic, so for us the arrival of our son and the blessing of our marriage, you know, were very important and special and meaningful.
Questo non significa che non si litiga, però.
It doesn't mean you don't fight, but it means that, you know, you stick together.
Thank you guys for sharing your experience with us and sharing your story with us. I know you guys have told us a lot of things, and you've given a lot of different perspectives. Like, there are certain things that you guys have mentioned about or talked about that I personally haven't thought about them in the way that you guys thought about them. And now I've been able to learn from you guys, and I'll be able to implement some of them in my own marriage. And I know our listeners are also going to be able to implement them in their marriages also. How best can our listeners connect with you guys if they have any questions or they want to say thank you to you guys in one way or another?
Sure, they can get in touch with me through about.com, and the best place to find me is at newlyweds.about.com or on my Facebook page at Francesca's Newlyweds Nest.
Thank you, Francesca and Antonio, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you guys sharing your story and the lessons that you've learned and sharing your lifestyle and the background that you come from, which is Italy. I know there are a lot of couples who are listening to us right now who are also from Italy or have parents from Italy, and they'll be able to appreciate your story and be able to relate with what you guys are sharing with us. And even if someone is not from Italy or they don't have any relative living in Italy, they'll be able to get a different perspective about marriage and how life is lived in Italy.
Sure, and a lot of people I've learned from my readers are in long-distance marriages themselves, much more long-distance and separated for more time than my husband and I, so I'm sure there are people who can relate to that as well.
The one thing I like about the stories that I share on this podcast is I get a lot of diverse couples coming in to share different things about their marriages, and there are certain things that you might think you know everything about. A couple will come on and they'll tell you with a different perspective, and that will challenge you to be able to improve yourself and improve your marriage also.
It's so true. I got hooked on your podcast. I started listening, and every story is just a little bit different so that you can learn something new, but just the same enough that you can relate to it.
Thank you guys for coming again to share your story.
We really appreciate it, and we love what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you guys a lot.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.